thank you all for being here and being part of this storytelling. I'm going to talk about Kcymaerxthaere. Everybody has learned about Kcymaerxthaere in school, correct? No? Okay, maybe we should practice pronouncing it. Kcymaerxthaere? Kcymaerxthaere? See, it's just like it's written. It's very simple. It's very simple. Kcymaerxthaere. And this is a parallel universe that I've created. And what I do is I go around the world and I install bronze plaques and historic sites that honor events from the fictional world and our linear world. And this is a map of Kcymaerxthaere. You can sort of see our linear world in the back there. But you can see these colored regions. And the colored regions represent different qualities of existence, qualities of Feralempt. And Feralempt is a quality of the universe that's as different from time and space as time and space are from each other. So they're very mysterious, and that's part of the work of Kcymaerxthaere, is to try to figure out what this is. So as I said, we install these plaques, we install historic sites that all tell parts of the story. And this is a site that we did in Cape Town, South Africa. This is one that's in the middle of the UK. I don't know if Paige got to it when you were in the UK. I hope you get a chance to go back. This is one that's in the middle of the United States in a place we call Wisconsin. And this is one that's actually underwater, so you can get a little bit of a swim in there. It's in Charleston Harbor in the southern part of the U.S. And this one I really like. It's off the coast of Scotland. It's in 20 meters of water, and you have to dive down to read it. And if you read it, it tells you this story. It says, "The unsoiling of Rockall. At the time of the Rockall ascendancy, here rose the most easterly point of that great island, larger than what we call Britain and Ireland together, both then ruled by Rockall's royal family. But royal arrogance and decadence finally provoked an epic uprising. A wave of citizens, Mlades Gidonhira, Elvid Macron, and Esther Tabran among them, began removing the soil and substance of Rockall, hurling it into the sea, ultimately leaving under royal thrall only the tiny wave-swept nub of rock still known today by the ancient name." And also, very helpfully, it says that if you find this plaque, please return the plaque to the ocean floor 8 miles due west of Due Bartok, which is an undersea mountain. So we try to be helpful as we spread the word about the alternative world. We've done Kcymaerxthaere beer, so hopefully Andre will start carrying that. And I'm not sure it's pure, but it may be artisanal. And we do bus tours and things like that. And so, as I said, the name of the project is Kcymaerxthaere. It comes from a cognate word, and cognate is a language in the alternative world called Chimera. Chimera means the true physicality of the planet. And an Xthaere is a shape with almost an infinity of dimensions or sides, infinity minus 29. So control of those missing 29 dimensions is very important. So before I go on, you might be wondering, well, why do I do this? It's a parallel universe. Don't we have enough trouble with the universe we have? And the reason I do this has a lot to do with some of the things Paige and Andre were talking about. It's really important today to learn to see the world fresh. And in a way, this project is like a novel, but it's a novel where every page is in a different place. Every page is in a different place, and so where you read it influences how you see the space. And so because language is so much a part of perception. Because everywhere we go, when you know something about it, you bring that information to what you see. So I thought, wouldn't it be great to create an alternative universe that existed in your head that you actually experienced? So when the sun's beating down, or in this case, a bus is going by, or whatever, that's influencing how you experience this parallel world. And that's sort of the idea. So this is a plaque that we did in what we call Montana. And if you go there, it tells the story of a singer. I won't read you the whole thing, but she was a singer whose voice was so beautiful that it couldn't be concealed. So the moment you heard her voice, you knew exactly who it was. And this was normally very good, but then she witnessed a murder, and she was the only witness, so the bad guys wanted to kill her. And every time she was hiding, she started to sing, and then people knew where she was, and they came after her. So that's one of the stories of Kcymaerxthaere. And this, as Jason was showing you, this is an embroidery that the women in Namibia did of that story. We also have part of that story in what we call Singapore. And And fortunately, it's our first plaque that has Chinese on it, so I'll read the English, but you can check my English as I read it. And so this is by in the Chinatown section of Singapore, and it says, place of refuge. After her 1,597th place of refuge, Iliala Mei Ning, that's the singer, she of the voice whose beauty could not be concealed, came to the small labyrinth that once stood on this site. It was her next or 2,584th home. She lingered here, enjoying the company of the good people of Ségolène, the name of the place, helping at a kind of trade school. When she finally sang at their request, it was reluctantly, for thus revealed she had to leave to escape the merciless Puni. But Nobunaga von Treven found her first. Quickly he explained how she could turn the Battle of Sometimes, which is an epic battle that was happening, and thereby save his beloved Milades. And you heard her name on that plaque at the bottom of the ocean, his beloved Milades. In a flash, they set off to the hub of Ségolène towards her 4,181st refuge, if it would be a refuge at all. And so you can see the piece of that story there. So, of course, nobody's going to go to every single place, although the airlines would love that. But what will happen is that if you go to one of them and you read the other ones online, it will change how you perceive what you're seeing. This is one we did in what we call Madrid, and these are Kymaerxthaere moons, and I figured with the Moon Festival coming up, that would be appropriate. This was the Spanish Moon Festival. I'm not sure if it passes muster here, but it was great because there's some secret messages in the plaques that I told that the kids in the area were there, and so they spent all this time trying to find them, and they figured them all out, and now they're the ones who tell the visitors about them. And so, but where you see this, where you read it, it changes how you look at it completely. It's like, when you see a red car coming towards you in the street, it's very hard to only see the color red. And that's good, because you don't want to be hit by the car. But and that's also because your brain interprets what your eye sees before your mind even knows it, which is, again, very practical. But you're missing all the things that aren't there. You're missing all the things that it is not. And so this project is really about connecting you with those things. Then after the Battle of Sometimes that we talked about, a tiny fragment of the desert landed in this place in what we call New Mexico in America. Fortunately, around the world, nobody really seems to know about Kymaerxthaere, so the land values are very cheap. And I was able to buy this land on eBay for $200, and we installed this beautiful site, and you can see the impact crater. And the plaque there talks about how the people there would see a triangle where we would see a curve. One of the most popular stories in Kymaerxthaere has to do with these creatures, Nasiens. And Nasiens are... you know about them. I mean, I don't know if you've cooked with them, Andre. Have you cooked Nasien meat? I thought you were on the cutting edge, man. The Nasien meat, Nasiens are seven-legged, deer-like creatures. And they're famous because their prime-numbered legs are extremely nutritious. But their non-prime numbered legs are poisonous unto death, so please be careful. And so there was a beautiful wall, though, that had many drawings of Nasiens. And so I asked these artists from Madrid to help me restore that wall. And you can see them working there. And these are some of their images of the Nasiens. This is a very Saul LeWitt version, just the hash marks of the Nasien. It's another one. And then this is a story that's gone around the world now. So these are some embroideries of Nasiens. And everybody brings their own feeling. Now, the reason I do this is because these are what I call disputed likenesses. In other words, we're not really sure this is what a Nasien looks like at all. But I think that feeling of visual ambiguity is very nice. It's sort of the way that everybody feels that Gandhi looks like Ben Kingsley. We know it's not true intellectually, but we see that poster and we've seen that movie, and those images are in our mind. So these are the women from Pinduka. That's Martha, who's the founder of it. And we really had an amazing experience working together. And this is their version of the story of the singer I was telling you about, that here's the murder she witnessed and all these sorts of things. So the stories really start to weave together in a nice way. Now, one of the things that's very... a little unsteady here. One of the things that's very important in Kymaerxthaere are stones, and handfuls of stones, and islands. And the idea that if you throw a handful of stones into the water, it can make an archipelago, just for a moment. So how did I learn about this? Well, this is a site that we have in what we would call Austria. And it got very quiet for several days, and everyone in the village was afraid to go out. And they came upon this, the rock you see there, and a little kid came out, and he read some words on it. But unfortunately, the words were read in a language called Schiffling Cognate. And I don't know if you know this language, but it changes meaning after each person reads it. So it can be very, very complicated to keep track of what's in the information. So quickly, everybody wrote down what it said, and this is this is what one of the languages said. It said, "Remember the story shared by so many guomes." A guome is kind of like a country. Guomes, rough pebbles perhaps, somehow thrown into a pond, creating briefly an archipelago at the moment they touch the Aralet surface. So if you think about what that means, is that if you throw some stones into the water, and if you could slow down time enough, it makes a whole cluster of islands. It's probably how the Maldives were formed, or even like a supernova, but this whole idea of creation in this way. And if you could slow down time, that little stone becomes an island, and that becomes a metaphor for the life of a person, or a community, or a planet. And so, but archipelagos don't have to all be islands. They can be pools of water and rock. This is one of my plaques, Becoming an Island. This is, the vegetation in the desert can be an archipelago. These are not real islands. These are islands of stone amidst sand. And one of the stories that relates to this happens in what we would call Western Australia, where the people who came there were standing there and they saw other people coming towards them, and they were about to get in a fight with them, and they said, "Hold on, this could be one of those vertical lakes. We could just be seeing our reflection in the water." So they picked up some stones and threw it in the water, and all the stones made the shape of all those forms. So like if you see that form there, you see it here. And so all the stones made the shape of the regions of Kymaerxthaere. And so about 17 of them were there, and together they make a very powerful place. And people enjoy visiting. It's very peaceful. Not so peaceful in the summer with the flies there. And then the artists locally drew on them. And you can see this image of Iliala Meining, the singer from before. And that's me showing I do a little bit of work. One more story happened in what we would call India. And I went to this village, and it's the story of Kullav Larsa. And do you all know the story of Kullav Larsa? Well, it's actually on the paper in front of you. So, we gave that to you because I sometimes speak too fast. So, trying to be calm. But I also wanted you to be able to take some of these stories with you, and you can see them in the embroideries back there. But I told the story of Kullav Larsa to the kids in this village, and together we decided to make a mural. And Kullav Larsa arrived at this village, and it's a very small village, about 10 hours drive from Mumbai. And she was a very striking woman, and she was very impressive, and she had a kind face, and she seemed like a good person, but she didn't say a word. Now, she was riding on the back of a saber-toothed tiger, so that was impressive also, but she didn't say a word. And the people gathered around, the kids gathered around. You can see this girl, Ségolène, no relation. Ségolène, she has a lizard on her shoulder. Now, I don't think you should cook this lizard, but there's a lizard called a rock Mary lizard, which is a very amazing lizard because it's the only lizard that can read your mind. It's kind of telepathic. And so they make wonderful pets, even though hunters hate them because they're always causing trouble. But anyway, so she had her pet lizard, and Kullav Larsa had a vision. So she kind of closed her eyes, and she had a vision, and she had a vision of a tower of wisdom, and you can see it right here. And it was a tower that was so tall, it's kind of like a monastery, went up through the sky to the bottom of the ocean, up into the clouds again. And she had this vision, and it was so believable that everybody could see it. And not only that, the lizard tried to climb up the vision. And so when people saw this, of course, they laughed. And that broke the spell, and the lizard fell to the ground. And then this bird tried to eat the lizard, but the tiger ate the bird, which, of course, the kids in the village thought was the most important thing. And when that happened, all of a sudden, Kullav Larsa, the woman on the saber-toothed tiger, she was able to speak. And she told the story. And what happened was that there had been a great war between those who believed in gods and those who believed in the worlds. And she got really fed up because the gods were always fighting on the sides of their believers, which is very unfair if you think about it, because, of course, they're going to win. So she's decided to trick the gods into not helping. And so she did, but unfortunately, at the very end of tricking them, she smiled. She gave a smirk, and the gods were very angry, especially this god, Kompas. And Kompas is the urgent god of directionality. He's the one who's always trying to make the world too simple. People think he's behind Starbucks, the Euro, and Wikipedia, but I don't know about that. But so he punished her by taking away her language. So she couldn't even speak to herself. And she said that she wouldn't get her language back until she spoke without words to one without words. So when that lizard climbed up her vision, it broke the spell, and she was able to speak again. Well, by the time she was done with her story, it was the morning. And in the morning, the people looked around, and all of a sudden the tower that she had had the vision of had been built. And so, just by the act of her telling her story. So what we did with the kids is we installed the 5 corners of the tower in our universe so you can visit them. And if you ever go down there, they'll be happy to tell you the story. Well, as Jason mentioned, we took a little trip to the southern part of Taiwan, which was quite amazing. And we were looking for places, and we're still looking for places to install part of the Kymaerica project. And it was quite an amazing experience. It's a very beautiful place. It's a very evocative place. And the purpose of the project is not to find the stories of the people of that place, because those stories are already beautiful. The purpose of the project, we were all there, and this is Sukulyu, who's the artist that we worked with, and I told many of the stories to. But the purpose of the project is not to channel the local stories, because they're already beautiful. The purpose of the project is to try to look at the world fresh, and to try to imagine another way of seeing how this planet can be, and use that ability to create a story. So we worked with them, and I think the way it's going to work out, and these are images of the stone carving tools, is to use the traditional techniques to tell the non-traditional story of Kymaerxthaere. And it was really kind of an amazing experience, and there's a group of his students that are learning stone carving, and we're going to work closely with them. So the story that we're going to tell is going to be one that starts in the north of what we would call Spain, and it's a story of a kid that is really good at building castles in sand, not even whole cities in sand. But his parents always tell him that he has to be careful of the waves. But he loves his castle so much that he forgets. And a big wave comes, and he has no place to escape but inside the grains of sand of the sandcastle. And so he's lost to them forever. And the wave takes him. He takes him to a place in Armenia, or what we would call Armenia. He's rescued by that singer I was telling you about. He goes to a place in what we call Australia, and the story concludes down in the southern part of what we call Taiwan. So I ask you to be patient about that. So this is some of the stone carving work, but hopefully over the next year we'll be installing these stories. So I want to conclude with a trip that I took to Cape Point at the southern part of South Africa. And I went there, and I was at the cliff, and I went down to the bottom, and I saw the tide pools that were protected by the rocks, and I went into the tide pools, and I could see the little shells that were making up the beach. And then the tide came in, and it lifted all the little dry pieces of shell and rock, and it made little islands. And these islands reminded me of the islands of our world, including the one we are on today. And you could see these islands kind of drift away. And this is why, for people in Kymaerxthaere, the metaphor of the island and the archipelago is so important, because over time, the little pieces of dry sand and shell sort of fell down back into the tide pool, and eventually, what's going to happen is that it'll be dry again, and the tide will go out, and the islands will be created once more, which is why one of the most important things about Kymaerxthaere is that not all islands are in the ocean. Thank you very much.